A community would be rocked when the battered body of an 11-year-old schoolgirl would be found a few hours after she went missing in Sparkhill, Birmingham, leaving the family and community wondering who would harm a little girl and why. This is the story of 11-year-old Tasleem Akhtar. Tasleem Akhtar, born in 1978 to parents Mohammed Iqbal and Bharat Bibi. She was one of 6 children, aged between 9 and 16, born to her parents, and she lived on Esme Road in Sparkhill with her 3 sisters and 2 brothers. She attended Anderton Park Primary School, her local school in Sparkhill, Birmingham. At that time, in 1989, Anderton Park Primary School was the largest school in Birmingham, with 810 pupils. Every day after school, she went to her uncle Mohammed Nazir's house on Ernest Road in Balsall Heath, Birmingham, just a 7-minute walk away from her home, to have lessons studying the Quran and to learn Urdu. She'd usually be home by 5 p.m. The Quran is an Islamic religious book believed to be the word of God through the Prophet Muhammad, and Urdu is a language spoken mainly in South Asia and is the national language of Pakistan, a country in South Asia. On Wednesday the 6th of December 1989, 11-year-old Tasleem Akhtar attended her Quran and Urdu studies at her uncle's house as usual after school. Normally, she'd go with her friend, but her friend was ill that day, so Tasleem went with her younger brother. That day, Tasleem left her uncle's house at 5 p.m, but by 5:15 p.m, she hadn't returned home, which was very unusual for her. Her younger brother had returned home, but Tasleem was not with him as he had gone on ahead of her. Tasleem's mother, 41-year-old Bharat Bibi, said, "Tasleem was such a good girl, always home on time." Due to the fact that 11-year-old Tasleem was never late home, her parents grew concerned, so her father, 41-year-old Mohammed Iqbal, went out to look for his daughter. When Mohammed Iqbal could not find his daughter, the whole family joined in the search, knocking on people's doors where they thought she might be. But Tasleem could not be located. Getting frantically worried, the police were called, and upon hearing of his niece's disappearance, another uncle, named Mohammed Hanif from Tasleem in Birmingham, rushed from work to join in the search. At around 10:50 p.m, nearly 7 hours after Tasleem had left home for her religious studies, Tasleem's uncle, Mohammed Hanif, who had rushed home from work to help join in the search, went around the back alley opposite her home with a torch and was horrified to find the bloody and mutilated body of his 11-year-old niece in the corner of the alleyway. He knew instantly that she was dead and ran out of the alleyway screaming. 11-year-old Tasleem Akhtar, who was described as a tiny girl, only 4'6", and weighing only 5 stone, or 70 pounds, was laid in the alleyway, which was strewn with rubble, her head caved in, having been battered to death with a brick. She was just 30 yards from her home. Upon discovery of Tasleem's body, it was said that everybody on her road was crying, whilst her father, Mohammed Iqbal, was seen staggering up and down the road in a grief-stricken daze. By 11:30 p.m, Esme Road in Sparkhill, Birmingham, where Tasleem lived and where the alleyway was where her body was found, was flooded with police cars everywhere. "11-year-old Tasleem Akhtar had been killed and died from multiple head trauma and massive head injuries from a fractured skull. Detective Superintendent Eddie Curry of West Midlands Police said Tasleem had been struck with a number of blows with a blunt instrument, mainly to the face and head. There was a tremendous amount of violence used. It was a brutal and horrific attack. Police described the killer as brutal and violent, and 60 officers were drafted in to help hunt the killer. Police officers stood guard outside the alleyway Tasleem's body was found in. A post-mortem done on Tasleem's body showed that she was the victim of a minor sexual assault, but there was no suggestion of rape. And although there was no evidence of molestation, detectives believed the motive for the killing was sexual. Tasleem's weeping mother, 41-year-old Bharat Bibi, told the press, "Find my child's killer before he strikes again." Whilst Tasleem's sister Noreen said, "Tasleem was always talking and got on well with the rest of us siblings. Although she used to tease us and joke, we were all very close." Tasleem's neighbour, 70-year-old Agnes O'Connor, said, "Tasleem was a lovely girl. She and the other children often fetched my shopping." She went on to say, "I spoke to Tasleem's mother this morning and she was very, very upset. She can't believe what has happened." The murderer had probably thought they'd gotten away with murder, but he had made one crucial mistake that led the police directly to his door. At the scene of the crime, police found a bus pass. That bus pass belonged to 16-year-old schoolboy Lee Costello, who lived just a 12-minute walk away from Tasleem's house and a 7-minute walk away from Tasleem's uncle's house, where Tasleem had gone for her religious studies on the day of her murder. 3 days after Tasleem's murder, 16-year-old Lee Costello was arrested at a special school that he attended and brought in for questioning, where he denied all knowledge of Tasleem's murder. Police searched his home and found notes he wrote of a rape and murder that he had planned to commit, and his fantasy of carrying out a sex killing, including a note he'd written days before the murder in which he wrote, "I'm going to get a girl this year, I know it." 16-year-old Lee Costello had a known reputation in the local area for attacking Asian kids, and in the past had shown a depravity, a perversion and cruelty that was quite astonishing for a 16-year-old. He was obsessed with violence, sex, rape and murder. And after lying to police about how he knew nothing about 11-year-old Tasleem's murder, 16-year-old Lee Costello eventually broke under interrogation and confessed. On the night of Tasleem's murder, as she left her uncle's house on Ernest Road in Balsall Heath, she would have had to pass Clifton Road, the road that her would-be killer lived on. Lee Costello had been out prowling the streets that evening looking for a victim to fulfill his twisted fantasy of raping and murdering. As 11-year-old Tasleem walked home, it's possible that she was being followed unawares by 16-year-old Lee Costello. As Tasleem approached her road and was just yards away from her home, the perverted 16-year-old grabbed her and dragged her into the alleyway with just one thing on his mind. 11-year-old Tasleem began to scream and struggled to escape. Her struggle stopped him from being able to rape her. Frustrated and angered that his evil act was not going to plan, and to stop Tasleem from screaming, Lee Costello knocked the 11-year-old to the ground, then covered her head with a coat. He then picked up a brick from the rubble-strewn alleyway and battered Tasleem about the head and rained blows down on her head multiple times with the brick until her skull fractured and her head caved in and she stopped screaming. Lee then returned home, where he acted as if everything was normal, probably feeling safe in the fact that he'd never get caught. But during the struggle in the alleyway, he had accidentally dropped his bus pass, leading the police straight to his door. On the 10th of December 1989, 16-year-old Lee Costello was charged with the murder of 11-year-old Tasleem Akhtar and remanded in custody to the Sparkhill Remand Centre near Redditch. At his pre-trial at Solihull Magistrates, the judge ordered that the identity of the 16-year-old not be revealed due to his age, and an application for bail was put in. Family and friends of Tasleem held a demonstration outside Solihull Magistrates Court, protesting about bail being considered for the teenage killer. The uncle who had found Tasleem's body told reporters outside the court, "We are here today because we are angry that any bail application was made at all." Tasleem's family and friends set up the Tasleem Akhtar Memorial Committee to campaign for justice for Tasleem and her family, and for the rights of children to live without fear, and also to end racist attacks and murders. The committee held pickets, public meetings and demonstrations. In the aftermath of Tasleem's murder, after campaigns from the Tasleem Akhtar Committee, Birmingham City Council closed off the alleyway where Tasleem's body was found and promised to improve street lighting on Esme Road and surrounding areas. City councillors were also asked to rename Esme Road, where Tasleem lived and her body was found, to Tasleem Road in her memory. But councillors on Technical Services Committee said that it could cause major legal and administrative problems. A report by City Engineer Derek Rawson said that the effects of renaming Esme Road to Tasleem Road would be to re-identify all those properties, and the consequences of re-identification is that title deeds, bank accounts, stationery and all manner of other documentation would have to be amended in favour of the new address, and that many residents might object as a result. He suggested that it might be more fitting to name an important building in the area as Tasleem House or something similar. Mr. Ajaz Kaleem, a member of the Tasleem Memorial Committee and a close family friend, said, "We will fight for Esme Road to be renamed, and we are considering legal action if necessary, and will be canvassing all 132 houses on Esme Road to try to win support. We knew this would not be easy, but we think it is the only fitting tribute to Tasleem. It would be a way to show that the city cared." Tasleem Akhtar's body was flown to Pakistan for burial. "16-year-old Lee Costello's murder trial began in July 1990. On the day of the verdict, Thursday the 26th of July 1990, hundreds of protesters gathered outside the court protesting that the attack was racist, but the judge denied it being a racist attack, saying that the motive was purely sexual. Security at the court was amped up because of the protests. The jury found Lee Costello guilty of murder, and he was detained at Her Majesty's pleasure. Upon sentencing, Judge Justice Turner told the 16-year-old, "You have a sexually warped and depraved mind, and are affected by feelings of perverted violence. At this time of your life, you present a very significant danger. It will be many years, if ever, before those who are responsible for your custody think it right you should be at large." After the verdict, Appalled and ashamed at what their son had done, Lee Costello's parents moved out of the area. Tasleem Akhtar's uncle, Mohammed Hanif, the one who had found her body, vowed to continue his war against racial violence. The judge had said, "It is quite plain from everything I have read and heard that the sole motive for this terrible crime was sexual and had no racial associations." Mohammed Hanif did not agree with this statement. 1 year to the day of Tasleem's murder, on the 6th of December 1990, 200 men and women from all communities gathered on Esme Road in memory of Tasleem, where her uncle, Mohammed Hanif, the chairman of the Tasleem Akhtar Memorial Committee, gave a speech telling of the positive work of the committee and remembering the victims of racial attacks. It was decided not long after that a new nursery or playground may be opened in Tasleem Akhtar's memory and named after her instead.